Introduction to the module. Every year there are over 4,000 construction fires annually, and about 100 of them cause over £50,000 of damage and usually result in complete dislocation of project schedules. In this module, you will learn the basics of fire hazards in a construction site and the fundamentals of evacuating a workplace. Topics to be covered. Introduction. Basic principles of fire. Sources of ignition. Source of fuel. Oxygen. Methods of extinction. Common causes of fire and consequences. Causes. Consequences. General fire safety hazards. Fire alarm and firefighting equipment. Evacuation of a workplace. Introduction. Each year UK fire brigades attend over 41,000 fires at work in which about 40 people are killed and over 2,500 are injured. Fire and explosions at work account for about 2% of the major injuries reported under RIDDOR. Some, like the National Westminster Tower, affect large numbers of people. In this case, about 600 workers were at risk when the fire broke out. The financial costs associated with serious fires are very high, including, in many cases, the failure to start up business again. Never underestimate the potential of any fire. Basic principles of fire. Sources of ignition. Workplaces have numerous sources of ignition, some of which are obvious, but others may be hidden inside machinery. Most of the sources may cause an accidental fire from sources inside, but, in the case of arson, about 13% of industrial fires, the source of ignition may be brought from outside the workplace and will be deliberately used. The following are potential sources of ignition in the typical workplace construction site. Naked flames. From smoking materials, cooking appliances, space heating or drying appliances, braziers and tar boilers. External sparks. From grinding metals, welding, impact tools, electrical switchgear. Internal sparking. From electrical equipment, faulty and normal, machinery, lighting. Hot surfaces. From lighting, cooking, heating appliances, braziers, tar boilers, plant and machinery, poorly ventilated equipment, faulty and or badly lubricated equipment, hot bearings and drive belts. Static electricity. Causing significant high-voltage sparks from the separation of materials such as unwinding plastic, pouring highly flammable liquids, walking across insulated floors, or removing synthetic overalls. Source of fuel. The things that will burn easily are the most likely to be the initial fuel, which burns quickly and spreads the fire to other fuels. The most common things that will burn in a typical workplace are solids, wood, paper, cardboard, wrapping materials, plastics, rubber, foam, for example polystyrene tires and furniture upholstery, textiles, for example furnishings and apparel, wallpaper, hardboard, and chipboard used as building materials, waste products, and hair are examples of solids. Liquids, paint, varnish, thinners, adhesives, petrol, white spirit, paraffin, toluene, acetone, and other chemicals are examples of liquids. Most flammable liquids emit heavier than air vapors that descend to the lowest levels. If the vapor catches fire in the right concentrations of vapor and air, it can cause a flash flame or an explosion. Gases, LPG, liquefied petroleum gas in cylinders, mainly butane or propane, acetylene, used for welding, and hydrogen are examples of flammable gases. If the air or gas mixture is within the explosive range, an explosion can occur. Oxygen. Oxygen is, of course, provided by the air all around, but this can be enhanced by wind or by natural or powered ventilation systems, which will provide additional oxygen to continue burning. Cylinders providing oxygen for medical purposes or welding can also give an additional wealthy source of oxygen. In addition, some chemicals such as nitrates, chlorates, chromates and peroxides can release oxygen as they burn and therefore need no external source of air. Methods of extinction. There are four main methods of extinguishing fires, which are explained as follows. Cooling, reducing the ignition temperature by taking the heat out of the fire, using water to limit or reduce the temperature. Smothering, limiting the oxygen available by smothering and preventing the mixture of oxygen and flammable vapor, by the use of foam or a fire blanket. Starving, limiting the fuel supply, by removing the source of fuel by switching off electrical power, isolating the flow of flammable liquids or removing wooden textiles, etc. Chemical reaction, by interrupting the chain of combustion and combining the hydrogen atoms with chlorine atoms in the hydrocarbon chain, for example with halon extinguishers. Common causes of fire and consequences. Causes. The most common causes of fire on construction sites are the changing flammability of combustible material. Being cut, planed, sanded, ground or filed into a finely divided form will readily catch fire. Loose packaging and other materials left on site. Poor storage of highly flammable gases and other materials. Dismantling of tanks with flammable residues. Coming across buried gas or electric lines during demolition or excavation. Inadequate arrangements for rubbish disposal. Discarding smoking materials. Overheating of poorly maintained plant and machinery. Improper use or poor maintenance of welding and cutting equipment. Temporary electrical equipment that is overloaded or poorly maintained. Damaged cables, faulty fuses, or circumventing of safety devices. Garbage accumulation against electrical equipment causing overheat. Overheating of coiled cables used for high current applications such as heating bonfires has become uncontrollable. Use of petrol or other accelerants to brighten bonfires. Arson through intruders or even disgruntled or bored site employees. Consequences. The main consequences of fire are death. Although this is a very real risk, relatively few people die in building fires that are not dwellings. In 1999, 38.6% people died out of 663 in all fires. The main causes of all deaths were overcome by gas or smoke 46%, burns 27%, burns and overcome by gas or smoke 20%, other 7%. Clearly gas and smoke are the main risks. Personal injury, some 1,900 people were injured, 11% of total injuries in all fires. Building damage can be very significant, particularly if the building materials have poor resistance to fire and there is little or no built-in fire protection. Flora and fauna damage can be significant, particularly in a hot drought or forest fire. Loss of business and jobs. It is believed that approximately 40% of enterprises do not reopen after a major fire. Many are under or uninsured, and small businesses frequently cannot afford the time and price of re-establishing themselves when they likely still owe money. Many site schedules are completely disrupted by a fire. General fire safety hazards. Fire needs three basic components to ignite and become a hazard: heat, fuel, and an oxidizing agent, usually oxygen. This is known as a fire triangle, or combustion triangle. To ensure that employees are protected from harm, employers must perform a fire safety risk assessment and continually review it when changes occur. This can be actioned as a single exercise or as part of an overall assessment. Using the findings from this assessment, you should identify the possible sources for ignition or extreme heat, flammable materials, and those it would affect if a fire broke out. From here, you should consider the safety measures. Keep flammable goods away from sources of heat and ignition. Ascertain that heating equipment is stable and safe, and that it cannot be knocked over by accident. Prevent the accumulation of garbage and trash, which could become a fuel source as it grows. Fire alarm and firefighting equipment. Even with the restrictions and preventative measures that a fire safety assessment will bring, it is always prudent to examine the existing precautions that are on the premises for alerting employees to the existence of a fire and the equipment that could help stem it. While some of these considerations may be answered by assessments and other safety exercises, an employer should continually think of these issues to ensure the well-being of the workforce. Examine your fire detection system and determine whether more expenditure is required: more fire alarms, smoke alarms, CCTV, room temperature warnings, etc. Check the extinguishers and other firefighting equipments are properly installed and operational. Ensure that all necessary personnel have received firefighting training and the fire marshals are strategically placed throughout the infrastructure. Review and update the fire safety policy whenever there is a structural or organizational change. Evacuation of a workplace. A confirmed fire alarm will most likely result in the evacuation of a workplace, and this is something that an employer must always be fully prepared for, ensuring the safety and well-being of the workforce. You must make sure that evacuation instructions are freely available and distributed to all employees. You must also make sure that regular fire drills take place and that staff are trained to act in an emergency circumstance, with assembly points clear and marked for them. Other considerations to take place are: consider and document how the evacuation alarm is sounded. Shift workers and casual staff should also be trained for evacuation, as well as those present over a holiday period. The evacuation route must be lit and provide safe transit to the assembly point. Fire exit doors must be clearly labeled and never obstructed, with enough available for the staff on site. Procedures must be in place for physically disabled employees and those who are considered vulnerable. Appointed fire marshals should act as incident coordinators and communicate with emergency services. Summary. In this module, we have covered: each year UK fire brigades attend over 41,000 fires at work in which about 40 people are killed, and over 2,500 are injured. LPG, liquefied petroleum gas in cylinders, mainly butane or propane, acetylene, used for welding, and hydrogen are examples of flammable gases. Employers have a legal duty to ensure that the workforce is prepared for evacuation. Fire needs three basic components to ignite and become a hazard: heat, fuel, and an oxidizing agent. A confirmed fire alarm will most likely result in the evacuation of a workplace, and this is something that an employer must always be fully prepared for, ensuring the safety and well-being of the workforce. Thank you. This is the end of this module. Thanks for watching. Happy learning.